civilization of today is shaped by the events and developments of yesterday. And when Solzhenitsyn speaks about the coming of a great world crisis, or even the end of the world, he's referring to the fact that this historical current, which has been going for the last 1,000 years at least, is now coming to its end. There's no place further for it to go. Either it must change drastically or destroy mankind.
are living in a world where rapidly, in an accelerating way, the things that we believe will not only be alien, there will be hostility, open hostility to the Christian faith. We're seeing it already. The things in Californian schools, the things that the government and local government are imposing on churches in California and Canada. These things are happening now. But do not be afraid. Let us not lose our peace. Let us not be afraid. Christ is with us. Christ is the victor in all things. He has overcome death. He has overcome the devil. He is risen. Our humanity is risen with him, and we will rise again. Judgment is coming. Let us prepare for that judgment. Let us fear the judgment of God, not the things, the temporal, momentary things of this world. And in this way, like St. Stephen, whatever our accusers say, whatever persecution may arise, we may truly find that peace by setting our vision on the kingdom of God.
All right, welcome to the Michael Sisko Show. New intro, and instead of the kingdom of God, we're going to talk about cryptocurrency today. But welcome back, Kurt. I'm always going to mess your last name up.
It's okay. Wuckert.
Wuckert. I did that last time too. But
no problem.
I don't have you for as long tonight because I was late, and then my excessively long waiting room. But it did the trick. We have 18 out the jump, which is pretty good. Pretty good for me. So, yeah, what's maybe for those who may have not seen the last episode, why don't you give us a quick introduction?
Sure. Plain and simple, I'm a Bitcoiner full time. I got into Bitcoin in 2012. I've been involved in Bitcoin infrastructure. I ran a mining operation in 2013. I've been in the consulting and development space. I have a cybersecurity background as well as a general business development background. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life. For the last year, well, I guess 2 years ago, I started working a bit with CoinGeek, and for the last year, I've been full-time at CoinGeek.com as the chief Bitcoin historian. I'm a big blocker, so much different than your typical crypto person. I'm not telling you to buy, hodl, get rich, and pump my bags. I'm a build a disruptive business kind of guy. So I like when people create something that cannot be created with any other technology, and I want to change the world or see the world changed by the entrepreneurship of people that are given a new tool. So that's the short version of me.
Yeah, I think somebody said you are trolled unmercifully, which I think the small blockers tend to do that, don't they?
This is true. Yes, I criticize their sacred calves basically full time. So I'm enemy number one to a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, well, I've been a supporter of BSV, I think, pretty much since you came on the show last time. So
nice.
I've gotten a little bit of a taste. So
yeah, yeah, I know. It's you know what, I've likened the toxicity to your typical social justice warrior cancel culture, the purity tests, the yep, he said the thing, get him off the internet. They're very vile people. So in the name of free speech and sound money, they believe they should cancel everyone who dissents from their brilliance. So
it's weird. My green screen's acting goofy, so I'll just have a weird glow around me the whole time. It was working perfect before, and then we go live and it starts
technology,
acting crazy.
Man. My camera and my mic have been giving me nonsense for 2 weeks now. It's
crazy.
Driving me crazy.
It is nuts. But I wanted to bring you on to talk about a few things that have hit the news lately, but a little bit old news by this point. But for me, I haven't been able to stay up to date and kind of really get the implications. But we did have the Craig Wright trial end a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point.
Yep.
But what were the implications of that, especially in relation to the whole small blocker versus big blocker and
Sure.
BSV argument.
So Craig Wright, for all intents and purposes, is the creator of Bitcoin. He's Satoshi Nakamoto. He wrote the white paper. He certainly had help from various other people, but he's essentially the architect. And so he was being sued by the brother of one of his old, basically his best friend, but a guy who helped him with a great many things. And one of the guys who helped him edit the Bitcoin white paper. And the brother, Ira Kleiman, said that his deceased brother, Dave, was essentially 50% of the Satoshi Nakamoto team, which is ultimately unfair, and the way I see it. And then a jury in Miami saw it the same way. But Ira was suing on behalf of the Kleiman estate, suing for like $600 billion or something in both Bitcoin and intellectual property related to Bitcoin. And ultimately, 13 of 14 counts, Craig was found not guilty, and was found guilty of conversion, but it was conversion of assets of a company called W&K Information Defense, which is a company that was owned at least partially by Craig and his wife, as well as Dave Kleiman. So the outcome was a serious victory for Craig. And Craig is the primary proponent. He is the biggest of the big blockers. So he believes completely in digital cash, digital disruption, like business utility. HODL is a very small part of the use case in the Bitcoin space, but he's also potentially the largest holder of Bitcoin ever. I feel like he has around 1 million Bitcoins that were mined by Satoshi Nakamoto that are essentially his. So complicated case. I mean, it's cloak and dagger on top of cryptography community, on top of like he disappeared and was very good at disappearing, and then was doxxed by people who were very good at finding him, and then just it was an impossible case to wade through in many ways. But the jury looked at the evidence and frankly the lack of evidence in many cases and looked at it and said, look, you just don't have a case. There's no evidence that Dave did anything other than what Craig said he did. And there's evidence that he did do the things that Craig said he did, but there is not evidence that he was some like architect, some deeply involved party in the creation of Bitcoin. And therefore they found for the defense. And ultimately, Craig Wright walked away victorious, the sole owner of the intellectual property and various other things for the Bitcoin protocol and stuff. So big case, a lot of implications, a lot of directions, but ultimately, set a lot of legal precedent about Craig's role in the creation of Bitcoin, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much established record legally now that he is Satoshi. Is that?
I mean, people will debate it forever. It wouldn't matter if he did everything, while standing on his head and moved all the Satoshi's coins with the keys. Like, there would still be people saying, he just stole the keys from Satoshi. But, what I saw was literally 6 weeks of evidentiary discovery. And I mean, it just was, it could only be measured in tons, the amount of evidence that I saw about like him being Satoshi Nakamoto. In fact, I joked that if he is not Satoshi, he has done nothing but pretend to be Satoshi since before Bitcoin was invented. And so it's feels really silly for people to argue that he's not. But of course, there's always the this is like the can you prove Jesus raised from the dead kind of question. It's like, well, define the parameters of proof, please, and then you can argue about it for 2,000 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, I'm still green to the whole thing, and just seeing the veracity of the argument just like blew my mind. I'm like, what? Like it's almost like BTC is almost a religion for people, and it
is. Well, and it's because I mean it's important technology. It is disruptive technology. It is for everybody. And on the BTC side, it's people that got extremely wealthy by being, in many cases lucky, but a lot of people also very calculated. A lot of people looking at it and saying, "Hey, this is going to go up in value," and now they've been rewarded for that. And it's like, I don't blame people for defending their stack, but at the same time, truth matters, even if it's unpopular. And so that's always kind of been my position on things. Like, Craig Greg's not who I imagine Satoshi Nakamoto would be. But the more I dig into it, it's like, okay, like that's the guy. I don't have to agree with him on everything. And then, that's why you get catchphrases like, never watch the butcher make your sausage or whatever, it's like, all right, I guess that's the process. So
that's true. And I think in our first interview, I mentioned that part of the attraction to crypto for me was kind of the freedom that it gives dissidents like myself.
Sure.
And so, we've been debanked even since we've talked. More of us have been debanked from banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. My good old friend Nick Fuentes was banned from Bank of America last week. My old boss was banned from Wells Fargo. And so, and obviously you look at something like Gab, and it was able to survive thanks to crypto. Maybe not the one that we like, but
sure.
it was still an avenue of its existence, ability to kind of exist outside of the mainstream system.
Yep.
And we did this past week. I heard an announcement that I didn't get too many details from, but I wanted to ask you about it, from the Biden administration, saying that they would take executive action against crypto. And so I wanted to see what you know about that and see what the implications are, and if we have a reason to worry, and what should we do? Those of us who are now holding massive amounts of BSV.
Well, I can tell you right now, there are a couple of BSV people that have been spending the last several days and weeks communicating with lawmakers. They've been in Washington, D.C., or communicating with lobbyists and things, like explaining, hey, here's the big difference between a regulatory compliant fintech tool or a digital cash system and versus something that is strictly used for like tax evasion, for example. And like, tax evasion is one of those things where it's like, is it moral to avoid taxes? And then you have to ask about the morality of taxation, and at what level does taxation become theft, right? Like this is a moral question. And I think everybody would agree that 100% taxation would be theft. And then at some point below that, most people decide that it's not theft, but that's a different number for basically everybody. And so so a lot of this is like, how do you break down and make a pragmatic decision about how much the law is supposed to be applied? And like Craig Wright, for example, is a big advocate for the courts. He loves the concept of law. He wants to bring people in and explain, like, look, Bitcoin is a legally neutral tool. It exists in order to do business both legally and illegally, but it's an open public ledger. Like, it is not meant to be an anonymous currency like a lot of people assumed it was. But it does allow for privacy, which is crucial. And like, we do not want the government to be monitoring us. We don't want, or maybe even we don't want anybody monitoring us, frankly. So it's like, if I spend, if I give $50 to my neighbor via Bitcoin, I don't want them to see the wallet that it came from. You're like, oh, interesting, Kurt's a billionaire, and so it's worth, killing him and taking his stuff, right? Like, it starts to be like a privacy and security problem. And so Bitcoin solves that problem both technologically and economically. And we have people that are basically explaining it to lobbyists, like, as we speak. I just talked to one of my colleagues a little earlier today, and he had a laundry list of congressmen on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, and talking to both of them and saying, hey, this is what BSV does. This is how BSV works. This is like, it is a disruptive fintech tool that does X, Y, and Z, but it is not something that is designed necessarily to, circumvent the state, as long as the state is also being legally compliant, because that's also the other problem with the government is, at what point is resistance the moral thing? And, these are questions that keep, actually coming up more and more. I actually just saw, before I popped on the show, that the GoFundMe page for the Canadian truckers just got taken down, and the money is being confiscated and given to the Canadian government. So, that's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe you should have used Bitcoin, but it's it's difficult because, I'm a libertarian personally, but like it's the same thing. Like, how do we get from where we are to a place where like property rights are universally understood and enforced, or is it just always going to be like a fight for, we have to be vigilant, we always have to be in the fight and that kind of thing? And I imagine that's probably how it is, and Bitcoin is just another tool in the war chest for that. But it, just like anything else, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad, and ultimately, lawmakers and normal people need to be educated on the fact that it's a tool for business, and sometimes business is bad, but usually business is good, and so it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. So the main, I guess, the regulations that are said to be coming, are they meant to kind of protect the dollar, or are they meant to stop this sort of like I guess trafficking, money laundering type thing?
I think so. I think so. I actually went off on a little bit of a tangent. The way that people treat Bitcoin and cryptocurrency generally is as an investment vehicle, and that's it. And they're trying to, protect their dollar from from inflation and various things. And what comes along with that is people saying, okay, well, I did this on a decentralized exchange. Nobody knows my identity, and maybe I've made $1 million and I'm not paying taxes on it. And that's just how I'm going to treat it. And then what that does is it opens the door to allow regulators to say, hey, these are a bunch of criminals, and maybe it's a national security issue to have a bunch of people who are anti-government in the first place and now making a lot of money that we're not able to track. I can understand why you could make the argument anyways that that's a national security risk. But ultimately, I really think that's the exception in many ways. Like, most people have not made a ton of money, and to treat it that way, it's just all of it's really problematic. And for someone who sat in a court for 6 weeks just late last year to see how people interface with Bitcoin, like conceptually as a technology, like, we are years off from people being able to think deeply about Bitcoin in a way that's valuable. I think I would like to keep it mostly out of the hands of lawmakers making regulatory policy, because I just frankly think they're not educated enough on what Bitcoin really is and what it can actually do. Because, like I said, the overwhelming majority of people say it's something that you invest in, and then money spills in, and then we're rich. And that's just not really that's not something that lawmakers are going to care about, or like, oh, well, we need to protect that for people. That's just okay, that's a weird luxury item or something. And but if it can be treated as cash, or as a fintech tool, like that's something that a lot of politicians and lawmakers, regulators, everybody will look at and say, oh, okay, show me how that creates new value and makes the United States more globally competitive than others. And then all of a sudden you get a bunch of lawmakers that are like, hey, let's fund an incubator, or that kind of thing. And that's really the behavior we want. If we must have a state, at least make them see the value that can be created in the private sector with a good tool.
I mean, maybe I'm a little cynical, but I personally think that they just want the ability to shut people's money off, and that this way of circumventing it is the real reason why they want to shut down crypto. And
there is definitely a contingent of that. There is a fascist penchant on on the streak of many a person in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think I would say Bolshevik streak, but
it's fair.
but,
I'll go both directions on that.
That's maybe true. That's so what's I know I also mentioned that, well, I brought up to you before the show that, Russia, shortly before Biden's announcement, made a similar announcement, but they cited something to do with competition with the ruble. Can you kind of expound on that?
Sure. Well, right now, I mean, the U.S. dollar has been the world reserve currency, where it's what we use to trade oil in internationally, which makes it super liquid, and really has undergirded U.S. power for a couple of generations now. Well, the ruble, basically Russia and China, and then in some cases Russia and some of the Middle Eastern countries have talked about forming an alliance to create a currency that puts them in the bully pulpit. So that's something that's been on their roadmap. We know that it's been on their roadmap for about a decade, and Bitcoin, it really throws a wrench in that because it is something that they really can't control, at least not by themselves. And so, yeah, I mean, like causing it like that's it's one of those variables that couldn't have been predicted when making a 10-year plan if you're one of the central planners in Moscow. And so yeah, absolutely, they want to stop their people from being able to subvert all of that. They want the ruble to be the world reserve currency because it gives them the power that they want. I mean, we've been in a power struggle with the Soviet group for 60 years, and then post, we had a couple of years where it's like, hey, maybe we're going to be friends now, and then we've had a very contentious relationship again for many, many years. It's always a very we're clearly competitors with one another, the US and Russia. And so they absolutely want the ruble to be the world reserve currency, and they can benefit from a lot of the things that the US has benefited from for many years. But Bitcoin is a variable that they can't control. They don't really know what to do with, so they're going to try to control it in their own nation. And I think it'll be to their detriment generally, but I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm not rooting for the ruble, but I just think that I don't think this is the way to go about it. But
yeah. Well, I think it's just like anything else. It's like, imagine if we discovered like how to create perpetual energy for basically free. It's like you'd have some people that wanted to fight that and suppress it and whatever else, but then you'd have other people. Like, what would make sense is for as many people as possible to make it work. Say, okay, we're gonna change the way that we do economics around energy, and that's a good thing. But it's certainly bad if you're in the industry for energy. And so it's just one of those things where it's been a very long time since there's been disruption of money, and now we're here and we're seeing people squirm about it.
yeah, Ray says, "Hey, do you get hate mail from Peter Schiff?"
Not personally. I've reached. I actually like Peter Schiff. I'm sitting here like I got silver coins and stuff sitting on my desk. I'm a precious metals guy. I've always liked precious metals. So I think of Peter as more of an ally than anything. But his disdain for Bitcoin is actually really informed. Peter is not just one of those guys who just doesn't understand it, doesn't like it. Peter is very, very smart, actually. So I have quite a bit of respect for Peter. I would love to talk to him about it because he criticizes BTC and the investment culture and the sort of nonsense of digital gold. And I agree with him that digital gold is nonsense. So I think Peter and I would get along quite well, actually.
I know Carbon Craft here says BSV is the future only blockchain that scales. What does that mean for those of us who are not that smart?
Sure. Most blockchains, like, people function under the assumption that a blockchain is a slow but highly secure data structure that allows money to be sent over an adversarial network. And it does do those things. You can send money over an adversarial communications channel because of decentralization, but the notion that it must inherently be slow is a fallacy. And we've proven it. So BSV is basically a re-implementation of Bitcoin the way that Satoshi originally designed it before a bunch of snakes got their hands on it. And ultimately, I mean, we've shown, this week we've got blocks that we've had days where we've had 5 million transactions go over the network, and it's 1,000th of a penny per transaction. We're doing NFTs, like utility-based NFTs on chain, all of this stuff. So if you want a blockchain that can transfer just endless transactions across the network, and you have predictable fees, predictable settlement time, etc., BSV is the only one. Solana would probably be our closest competitor, and we've watched Solana get unsynced like 5 or 6 times now. It just keeps breaking down, and it's because they're built much more fundamentally complex than BSV because they think that complexity solves problems, and it doesn't. BSV is a very simple but very powerful implementation of Bitcoin, and allows you to build anything you want. Anything that needs to reduce payment friction globally or increase data integrity globally is something that BSV has no competitor on those things.
Yeah, I know Alexandria Union says, why is digital gold nonsense? Now, if I could say, my observation seems to be that it's like, and you can correct me because I'm a rookie here, but things like BSV, for instance, the value is inherent from the technology, not so much just like some sort of scarcity like gold would be, for
Right.
instance.
Essentially, I mean, so a lot of people cite Gresham's law or Lindy effect or some of these like monetary theories that apply to physical gold. Like these are things that gold bugs have talked about for a long time. If you read about, Ludwig von Mises or Friedrich Hayek and some of the Austrian School of Economics people, and they talk about how, gold standard or a gold based currency is valuable because of X, Y, and Z. And Bitcoin's scarcity, the digital scarcity, this economically enforced supply limit of 21 million Bitcoins, it's just a ruse. Like if the world actually collapses, excuse me, if the economy, continues to worsen and all of these things, if you actually read what Gresham's law, Lindy effect, and some of these other things imply, it's not going to push value into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is only 13 years old. It will push Bitcoin, or it will push value past Bitcoin, and it should push back into precious metals, which have thousands of years of Lindy effect. Like it's just the nature of things that when people get spooked, they retreat to things that have the most long-term value that they can understand. And Bitcoin doesn't have that at all. I mean, Bitcoin has been, for almost everybody, nothing but a speculative asset. And a great many people who have bought Bitcoin at any given time, the majority of people who bought Bitcoin have bought Bitcoin recently because it is getting more popular. And so we're frankly, in my opinion, in a bear market. We've lost more than 50% of its value over the last 2.5 months. And so most people are underwater on their Bitcoin. They're certainly not they're going to retreat to Bitcoin now. Like that doesn't make any sense. But digital scarcity is something that, it is one of the cornerstones of Bitcoin. Like it has some properties of digital gold, but its primary use case is not savings. It's not to be a reserve asset. It's not even a solid settlement network. Like even if like people talk about, we'll just settle big transactions on it. But even if you look at big transactions settled globally today, like BTC Bitcoin is completely incapable technologically of settling even just the very large transactions globally right now. So it's a very silly concept that really you're judging a version of Bitcoin that doesn't even apply the Bitcoin protocol's principles to its network economics. It's just the whole thing is made up. It's a ruse. And what really happened is you had guys like Max Kaiser and some of the other influencers came from the like gold and silver advocacy industries. And they said, we're going to move here. We're going to pump Bitcoin like it's gold. And they used the same tactics that they did to try to pump gold and silver like 10 and 15 years ago. It's influencer nonsense. And it's the kind of thing that like, it just sucks people in because they need other people's money in order for that use case to continue to go up. It's a Ponzi scheme. Yep, you're muted.
Thanks for the heads up. I know you only have about 6 minutes left. This question is basically what I was about to ask. Where can I read about your guest views? The share of my husband who is all into crypto. Yes. How do people get into where would you say they start if they want to get into crypto? And more specifically, how do they find BSV?
Sure. Well, I have a website, so you can find me at kurtwuckertjr.com. I'm a writer for coingeek.com. We have a Bitcoin 101 section on our website that just kind of explains the basics. And if you want to look at bitcoinsv.com, explains the specifics on Bitcoin SV, which is the version of Bitcoin that I personally like and advocate for. And honestly, don't trust anybody. Don't trust me either. Like, do your research, but understand that almost everybody in the space is trying to get your money out of your pockets so that they're, the asset that they're holding goes up in value. And the one thing that I'll tell you is that, I'm not telling you to buy Bitcoin SV. Like, I'm telling people that if you have a business opportunity that needs global payments and increased data integrity, that Bitcoin SV should be the base layer in your tech stack at your company. And with that, I hope value comes to Bitcoin SV. But I'm not looking for, grandma and grandpa's money. Like, don't write me the check. I don't want it. That's not what Bitcoin is about.
I just want to be a BSV whale someday,
I mean, you can, by all means, but buy some Bitcoin SV if you want some. But this is not an investment promotion.
And the final serious question: hey, Kurt, when will Michael take the bald pill?
I hung on to my hair for too long. I let it get way too thin up front, and finally, my wife said, "Kurt, you're done. Like, go shave it off. Like, it's not coming back." But you know what? I like it better. Like, my hair was never great, anyways. But yeah, big fan of the bald head.
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna get some coin today. Actually,
nice.
Is it taboo to announce that you're gonna do it? You're gonna do it?
I don't think. I mean, taboo's fine, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, I personally, like, I try to earn it. But I've got a pretty big following on Twitter and stuff. So for me, it's easy to earn by
yeah.
Hey, who wants to play a game with me? And I can get hundreds of people to like jump in. And
I still get those. I get the Satoshi ones.
There you go. Yeah.
Satoshi sent you. And I remember like one day I was like, I want to be in the one BSV club. And he's like, here.
Nice. And it's that kind of thing is fun. Like, you can definitely earn it. But right now, I mean, BSV is probably not even $90 right now. So like, if you want one as an investment for the future, like, you can have one for $90. And if you can't afford $90, you shouldn't be investing in anything at this point. So
that's true. I got in a car accident, my second one in 6 months, which is weird because the one in the summer was my first one ever. But I got jackknifed by a tractor trailer that lost control of his trailer on an icy curve, and somehow I didn't get decapitated.
Wow.
But I got more for the car than I paid for it. So I think I'm gonna use some of those funds because I got a new car I financed a car, so all the cash is just mine. So I think I'm just gonna use all of it for BSV.
It's bold. I like it. I like it.
I'm gonna get like 10 coins. 10 coins. Okay, I don't know about that, but I'm still poor. I'm still nowhere near all you whales, Kurt.
No, I hear you, man.
So, but anyways, I know you have to go. I might stick around on the stream if anybody wants to hang out and call in. So
cool.
But I'm all finished with you unless you want to hang out longer. So.
No, I should jet. I got to take care of some stuff. But it's been a pleasure, Michael. You're looking well. I'm glad you survived the car accident. And we'll talk soon, man.
Alrighty. Thank you, Kurt. Bye-bye. All right. So it's just me, guys. If anybody wants to call in, I'm going to drop the link. So I know it's been a while since I have streamed. And obviously, I dropped out of the congressional race. And so you guys might have some questions and whatnot. But that was it's always good to talk to Kurt. I really should bring him on more often. But yeah. So I dropped a link if anybody wants to call in. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, I will just give an update as to what's been going on since my last stream, which was, I think, in December, in the beginning of December. And so I haven't had a chance to really do anything. I mean, I've been pretty busy. I got a promotion in my job which I never talk about because I don't like being harassed by liberals, by Antifa and stuff. So, but I do have a job, and I became a general manager of a place, and that the place that I took over, the company that I took over, was not in good shape. It was about half staffed. And so the first month and a half really required about 70 hours a week of my time. And I went on a hiring spree. I just had no time to do much besides work and get this business turned around. So while I really am excited for the promotion and I really like the money, and this has all been great, but it's been very taxing. I couldn't even go to church for a couple weeks because my business is open on Sundays, and I didn't have a manager that could cover. I didn't have the people that could cover Sunday mornings. So, but that's different now. I've pretty much got it turned around. I can go to church every week, but that isn't all that happened. During this time, my girlfriend came to visit from Texas. She came to visit West Virginia for Nativity, and it's all kind of the whole trip from the beginning just kind of got disrupted because of a snowstorm. So we had all these plans. We were going to go here for vigil, and then we were going to drive back over to Western Virginia for where my church is for the morning liturgy, but we were going to stay at our friend's house that night. All the plans were messed up by the snow. So we couldn't go to vigil because of the snowstorm. So we had to go directly to our friend's house, some parishioner's house, after we had dinner with my mother. And, whatever, it stinks to miss vigil, but we make it to church on Alexandria Union, asking all the questions. But we make it to liturgy. It's fantastic. Absolutely amazing. It was my first time being at church in a number of weeks because of work. And so that was great. And then we just, we go out, we break our fast with our parishioners. We went to a Japanese steakhouse, and it was like the teriyaki steak just melted in my mouth. That was good. But anyways, it was a couple hours drive back to where I live. And we had a whole evening of plans. We had, we were going to go have dinner in Romney, and then we were going to go from there up to Berkeley Springs so that she could stay at my friend's house, my campaign manager at the time, and nice family. But I had to go pay my rent because it just happened to be rent day, and I pay with postal money orders. So we stop at the post office, then we head towards Kaiser, which is where I live. Well, it's starting to get dark. We're driving, and I'm noticing that the roads are starting to get a little icier for my comfort to do all the plans that we planned. So I say, hey, let's skip dinner and go straight to Berkeley Springs. I'll pay the rent, and then we'll go right to Berkeley Springs. And so I took a route that is generally safer, less curvy, less rural, at least I thought. And we get off the interstate, and we get on to this road called Road 93 in Grant County, and it's like 5 o'clock in the evening. It's still a little light out, but anyways, I'm going really slow. We're on a 55 mile per hour road, and I'm doing like 30 miles an hour because of the weather. And so I'm in the old Buick. We're in complete control. Haven't lost traction, but we see a tractor trailer coming, flashing his lights. And what he was really doing was he was trying to warn us about his trailer. He lost control of his trailer. But I have nowhere to go. It's a two-way road. And I just see his trailer turning into my lane. And so I just start driving off the road because there's nowhere else to go. There's no shoulder. There's nowhere to go. And I get as far off the road as I can as this thing just coming at me. And if we were to go straight into it, we would both be decapitated. But I drive as far off the road as I could. And I hit the ditch. I hit a ditch, which was all snow. So that was kind of a soft landing. And it was like at the last second, I thought maybe we would get around the trailer. But then we hit the ditch, and then almost simultaneous, like right after we hit the ditch, the trailer hit the rear of my car. So it was like boom, 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 boom. And luckily, neither of us were physically harmed. At least no serious injuries. I think my passenger, also known as my girlfriend, is she has some soreness and some like back aches and there's stuff she's getting checked out, but nothing necessitated any emergency room stuff or anything like that. So yeah, that's good. The worst part, honestly, was being stuck out in the 11 degrees outside for hours. And one thing about West Virginia that you won't see anywhere else is about 10 people, it seemed like, stopped to help us. And they let us sit in the car to stay warm until the ambulance came and the police came and everybody. So yeah, we're okay. We're okay. And I got more for the car from my insurance company than I paid for it, which is awesome. So I'm very happy to be here, happy to be alive. And also, another funny thing is I got this rental car after that, and it was a Ford EcoSport, and it was a gray one, and it looked hideous. I thought it was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But anyways, I'm driving it around West Virginia to and from work after my girlfriend left. And now, by the way, the trip was very good anyways. We still love each other, and maybe a little more actually. But anyways, I'm driving this Ford EcoSport around up in the mountains, and as ugly as it is on the outside, I really enjoyed the way it handled, and I felt safe. And it's a 4-wheel drive vehicle. It just did really good in the snow. And Pepe Funk Pop says, "Where do you work?" Yeah, that's not saying on the internet. Thanks. Nice try, Antifa. Nice try. But anyways, I go back to Baltimore, which was the only place I could find a rental car. And I drop off the rental car. I'm at the rental car place, and I have to decide, hey, do I want to rent longer so that I can, maybe figure out what I want to do, wait for my insurance check to come, and then maybe worry about a car then. But the insurance place just happened to be next to a car dealership that I used to work at. And so I said, you know what? You can keep your rental car. I'm just going to walk across the street over here. And so I walked to my old place of employment, and I said, "Hey, I want a car." Called up my old finance guy who I used to work with. He was still there, and I went to see him, and it was actually a Subaru dealer, but there were 0 new Subarus in stock. So I'm thinking I was going to buy a Subaru, but they didn't have any. But I look across to the pre-owned vehicles, and I see a Ford EcoSport, a 2018, 37,000 miles, had a moonroof, navigation, heated seats, and I'm like, hey, look, it's ugly, it's orange and ugly, but you know what? I like the way it drives, and I'm not going to be looking at it while I'm driving. So I bought it. I bought the Ford EcoSport, and I've had a chance to drive it in the snow a couple of times now, and it's done absolutely amazing. And I love the car, and now it's not as ugly to me when I look at it. It's grown on me a little bit. It's like one of those "you're so ugly, it's kind of cute" type of deal, like a dog, like the smush face dogs. So, but anyways, that's what I've been up to. I also dropped out of the congressional race I was in just because didn't seem like there was really a path to victory that was practical, and I didn't want to just kind of continue to run in a race that I wasn't going to win just to increase my clout and take donations. And so I'm not ruling out a run in the future. I may run again. I don't know if I'll run for the same thing, maybe next time, or what. So, but I'm definitely going to be involved in politics still. I have a project that I will be releasing starting soon that will be related to West Virginia, Appalachia, and I think that will be, in a way, potentially more beneficial than had I won an election to be a congressman. So, Orthodox Pernicius says, I always wonder if they have good jobs you can only find locally in WV. I'd like to move near Holy Cross Monastery. Also, I hope Father Seraphim is doing okay. Well, that area, Wayne, West Virginia, is about 5 hours from me. Huntington is probably the biggest town close to there, and there's plenty of work in that area. Some of it, yes, West Virginia is like a time warp. Some places like finding a place to rent, they don't really post online all the time. You have to look for signs. Jobs, yeah, some of it's local. And the cost of living is very low. The wages are lower, but it's actually living wages. So you can, no lie, you can work at a normal kind of like retail job and live. You can afford your rent and food and even a car. You can get an older car. It's very, you don't have to live on your salary from wherever you're coming from. You probably don't need that much here. So housing is very affordable. I live in the Eastern Panhandle, which I like personally. I like better than down that way. Although it would be nice to be close to Holy Cross. What I really want is a monastery up here. And I live in Hampshire County now. So Romney, West Virginia is where it's at. We're going to build our Orthodox Appalachia state. It's going to be headquartered out of Romney. So we're going to eventually have a church here someday, I hope. In the meantime, I drive a little ways for church, but I really love my parish. So, but I would like to have a mission out here. Dream Trove, is this crypto? Well, you're a little late. We had our interview with Kurt on crypto already. So yeah. But anyways, I think I've had enough. I don't think we've had any super chats today. Shame. But it's all right. I know. I haven't streamed in over a month, so I don't deserve any super chats. I don't deserve your super chats today. But since we did do this was a crypto episode, you can send me BSV and putting it in the chat to at Michael Cisco on Handcash, the Handcash app, which is what I recommend as a wallet for your BSV if you get some. But my work has settled down quite a bit. So I've kind of settled in. I'm getting back to a regular schedule. And so I believe that we will be streaming at least once a week. We might be able to get back to twice a week. And that would be great. That would be fantastic. Because I do need to wrap up my series on creation and Genesis. And then I'm going to move on to some more Orthodox content. We are going to do kind of a catechism series, which I have planned out. So, and of course, the model is going to be the same, on one episode where it's just me doing stuff like that. And then we're going to have guests on. But I do have one commitment to make before I sign off today. Unfortunately, a former guest who happens to be female has gone full Wignat and has lost her mind. And so I've disavowed and I've backed off and I'm disassociating. Not going to say anything. Not going to say who. But we've had a couple prior guests just kind of lose their minds after coming on my show. And they've all been female. So I got a new rule. I love women. I'm going to say I love women. I love the Theotokos. I love mothers. But there's something about political shows that there's something about it. And I have to apologize to my fellow Groypers and all of the America First people for platforming e-girls and women on my show. Never again. A woman will never again be platformed on my show unless it's for a roast or a significant name. Like gigantic name, like Wendy Rogers or Tulsi Gabbard or something like that. But unless it's some specific exception, no more women on my show. No more e-girls. Not even once this year. It's never happening again. No woman will ever be a guest on my show. So it's happening. That's just how it's got to be. Because I've learned my lesson. I've had them on, and it has just burned me. It's done nothing but burn me. So no more e-girls. You're right, Rich. No more e-girls. Orthodox Pronesius says, can you give us her first name for a prayer? If not, I understand. I'm not going to do that, but I will tell you. It was also the last female that was on the show. I'll give you a little hint. You can dig back. And by last female, I don't mean Father Barnabas Powell, okay? But maybe the one before that. So, anyhow, that's all I have. Thank you for watching. Please support the show. I'm going to put up the links actually shoot me some BSV at Michael Cisco on Handcash. I'll post it on the Telegram channel as well. So I will be back next week with a show, probably wrapping up the creation series. So thank you very much and have a good night.